Welcome everyone to our Monday night shiur. Good to have you guys back after the holidays. We had a shiur last week, but it wasn't the same. But Baruch Hashem, we're all back today. First and foremost, our shiur should be Leilun Nishmat Ezra ben Asher Ruach Hashem Tenicheu Began Eden. Amen. And also Ratzlachat B'Chat Shemonov Yisrael ben Asher Yisrael ben Leah Michal bat Chana Yosef Chaim Abigail Tamar Elisheva Chana Besar Rivka bat Michal. Hashem should send them much bracha v'atzlacha, yeshuot gedolot v'chol med mitam v'chen yitzum nomar. Amen. Today we're going to speak about Avraham Avinu. The Gemara says whoever calls Avraham Avram over ba'aseh. Whoever calls Avraham Avinu Avram is going over an aseh in the Torah. So a Baal Korah has to be very careful. If he's reading too fast and there are letters, there's 3 letters that Baal Korah is. Baal Korah is in general, human beings, when they daven, they always swallow those letters. Those letters are Hey, Ayin, and Aleph. First of all, in general, Gabriel.
But in the beginning,
those letters, Hey, Ayin, and Aleph, everyone pronounces the same. Mm-hmm. They just say Aleph, Hey. They don't say Hey, they say A. Hey. They don't say Hey. Yeah, it has to be a Ha. And they don't say Ayin, they say Ayin, like an Aleph. Everything is an A to them. The Shulchan Aruch in Siman Nun Daled, I believe in Orach Chaim, says any chazan that doesn't know how to pronounce an ayin and a chet cannot be chazan. Any chazan that doesn't know how to say ayin and a chet cannot be a chazan. It's pashut. Shulchan Aruch says this. We Sfaradim, that we come from Artzot Sfarad, we never lost that sound of a ayin and a chet. But on the other hand, the letter tzadi is not really tz. It's s, like a samech. We don't do that. Temanim do that, but we don't do that. In a sense, Iraqi Jews, they say the right way, the vav. It's not really vav. It's not a vav. That's a vet. It's wow, like a W. It's a W. It's not a vav. It's a wow, really. It's a W. That's what the letter is. Unfortunately, in our days, we lost a lot of the sounds that we used to make. The Ben Ish Chai writes about this in Ben Yehoyada and in Rak Poalim. He writes over there that unfortunately to us today, atzere, to 2 dots, an e, and a segol and an e is the same thing to us. Back then they used to know how to make the difference. Many people pronounce the kamatz and the patach the same. Both say ah, right? And when the vav has a dot inside, it's an u. Also when it's 3 dots to the side, right? A shuruk. It's also u. It cannot be that 2 signs are the same sound, the Ben Ish Chai says, but unfortunately we lost a lot of those meanings of those sounds. But Hashem Yitbarach accepts our tefillah because He knows what we're saying, obviously. But still, when a person doesn't know how to say an ayin and a chayet, he cannot be chazan. According to Shulchan Aruch, at least he can't be a chazan kavua. He cannot be a regular chazan, a consistent chazan. He cannot do that. He has to know how to read correctly. Chazanut is not about how to sing nicely and how to make a whole opera out of it. Chazanut is about how to daven correctly. By the way, how would they used to call Nevi'im back in the day? A chozeh. What do we call a person who goes up? A chazan. Chazan and chozeh is the same thing. When a kohen blesses the kahal, he doesn't say the blessing by himself. He doesn't say Yivarechecha. Hashem told him to bless. Why does the chazan have to say it to him? Because really the chazan is on a higher level than the kohen. He gets the bracha from the kohen. So Hashem gives the bracha to the chazan, which gives it to the kohen. Then He gives it to all of Klal Yisrael. So it's a very, I think, person who has to say it. So back to what we were saying about Avraham Avinu. The Midrash says the whole world was created for Avraham. The whole world was created for him. The Rambam, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon, loved Avraham Avinu so much that he named his only son Avraham. The Rambam had 2 kids, 1 boy and 1 girl. Wow. That's it. He died very young. I think he was 59 years old, something like that. And he had 1 son called Avraham. If you see what the Rambam writes on Avraham Avinu in his book, Yad HaChazakah, in the beginning of Hilchot Avodah Zarah, laws of idol worship, there's laws of idol worship. The Rambam goes through what's an ov, what's a yid'oni, all these kinds of avodah zarah. And the Rambam gives a whole introduction. He doesn't do that in any single mitzvah. And over there he talks about Avraham Avinu. And already in the beginning you could see his fervor, his delight when discussing Avraham Avinu. He calls him Adam Anak. You know what Anak means? A giant. More than a giant. Anak means huge, bigger than life. Anak sheba anakim. He calls him an Eitan. Eitan, you know what an Eitan is? Eitan means something that's immovable. People like to give that name to kids. Eitan, it's so modern, right? Eitan. But Eitan is really a name, it's a klitschka, it's a nickname for Avraham Avinu. Avraham was called Eitan, you know, in the Tehillim, I think chapter 89, right? There's a Mizmor le'Eitan, right? That's to Avraham Avinu. Some say Avraham Avinu wrote that Mizmor. So there isn't one da'ah like that. And that Avraham wrote that Mizmor. Because he was called the Eitan. What's Eitan? You have to understand, Rabbi said that Mamash Avraham was one against the whole world. But you might say something very interesting. Yeah. Noah was alive during Avraham Avinu's time, right? Who else was alive? Shem. We have him in this week's parasha. Oh, Malki Tzedek. Look at Rashi. What does Rashi say on the spot? Malki Tzedek ze Shem. Ze Shem. Oh, Malki Tzedek melech Shalem. Hotzi lechem ve'yayin. V'hu kohen le'el elyon. Shem was the kohen at that time. Le'el elyon. That means there still was a city somewhere in the world that still believed in Hashem. And we see later when Yoshua bin Nun, when he conquers Jerusalem, what is Jerusalem called? The city of Malki Tzedek. Wow. That means till Yoshua, when he came to conquer Israel, that city was still called Malki Tzedek. Everyone was called Tzedek, Adoni Tzedek, Malki Tzedek, everything Tzedek. That means it was a place of righteousness. Jerusalem was a place of righteousness. But unfortunately, after a while, this place of righteousness turned into a place of avodah zarah, a place of shpichut damim, until the point, Abraham, that when a one man stopped in Yerushalayim to stay for a night, all the young, what we call shababrikim, all the young, what's a nice word for them? Banditim. They knocked on the door. They said, "Who's this girl? Who's this guy who came to sit in Yerushalayim?" This was the original Yerushalayim. Who's this guy who came to sleep in our house? Jews from Shevet Binyamin. And the host said, "Don't touch them." It's like sounds like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah. And he says, "Take my daughters." He says, "No." The husband says, "Don't touch them." He takes his pilegesh, his concubine, and he throws her out the door. It says in the Shoftim, the book of Shoftim, the book of Judges, "V'it'alelu ba kol halayla." They did something to her, which I can't say, all night. She goes home the next morning. She dies by the door. The guy takes her husband, she was his pilegesh, he cuts her to 12 pieces, sends her to 12 parts of Am Yisrael. They go to war with tribe. Where was this? All happened where? In Yerushalayim. This all happened. It's all happened in Yerushalayim. This was the place. In the place of the greatest Kedusha, turned to the place of greatest Kilipah chas v'shalom, tribe of Benjamin. Benjamin had 10 sons. Why did Benjamin have 10 sons? How many sons did Joseph have? 2. What were the names? Ephraim and Menashe. You should say Menashe and Ephraim. Menashe was the oldest, right? And Binyamin had 10. 10 plus 2 is 12. So Jacob blessed Rachel, Rachel, you will have your own 12 tribes. That's why she had 12 grandkids. You understand? Leah didn't have 12 grandkids. No. And even if she did, those kids didn't grow into bigger families. But Rachel had 12 grandkids, but unfortunately all of the tribe of Benjamin was wiped out. All was left was 500 men. One of them was who? Shaul HaMelech. And he had tzniut. He didn't grab his wife. He asked her to marry. And there's a midrash that says he didn't ask her, she asked him to marry him. That's why when Jonathan loved David, remember when Shaul had melancholy? That's what they write in the translation, melancholy. Depression. As if he was depressed. He wasn't depressed. He had ruach ra'ah. You know what ruach ra'ah is? Bad spirit. That means he had a dibuk. He had a dibuk inside of him. You understand? And the only thing that calmed him down was David HaMelech's harp. And one day Shaul, how you say in Bukhari, Shoshesh Besarash, hit him. He took a spear while he's playing. In all of the tribe of Benjamin, they have a special skill. That's how you know if you're the tribe of Benjamin. They're sharpshooters. They're very straight to the. So if you're a basketball player and you always hit the hoop and you always get it in, you might be from the tribe of Benjamin. No, okay, maybe, who knows? So he takes the spear and he tries to kill David, and he doesn't even move. Hits him over here. David doesn't know what to do. Takes a second spear, tries to kill him again. David says, "Listen, I'm not staying with this guy. He's crazy." He runs away. That day was Rosh Chodesh. It was Rosh Chodesh, and that time the minhag was, we don't have this minhag today, but back then they were machmir. Rosh Chodesh was like Shabbat. It was like Shabbat. They wouldn't work on Rosh Chodesh. In many places in the Navi we see this. They would not work on Rosh Chodesh. They would take a day off, and on Rosh Chodesh they used to go to the Rebbe's house to hear a shiur. It was a very big day. But today, it's for some reason, I don't know, it wasn't incorporated in halacha. Maybe there was no asmachta in the Torah for it. Maybe it was just a minhag. But back then they were more machmir than us. You should know that. All those derabanan halachot that we say today, they didn't just keep it. They were more machmir than us. So it was Rosh Chodesh, and they, by the way, they didn't eat food until they would dip in a mikveh. They would not eat food. They would not eat bread until they wouldn't dip in a mikveh. You know what that means? Imagine that means every person had to have a mikveh in his house. You understand? If a person got tameh, he would take his clothing and dip it inside the mikveh. It was pashut. There was no other way of living. Everything was done by tahara, with purity. So that day was Rosh Chodesh. It was a month with 2 days Rosh Chodesh. The first day, Shaul sits in his spot, and he's the son-in-law. He's the son-in-law of the king. He tells him sit next, and his spot was right next to Shaul. He tried to kill him the day before. So he's wondering, how come David didn't come to the Seudah today? How come he doesn't want to come? So the Navi says because the Shaul said maybe he was tameh. Because the first day gave him Gavzahud. Maybe he's tameh, he said. That means if a person was tameh, he wouldn't eat bread that day. He would dip in the mikveh, wait for that night. They would eat chulin b'tahara. They would eat regular food b'tahara. Not just kohanim. By the way, a person who wants to get Ruach HaKodesh, he has to be in this level. He has to eat chulin b'tahara. Obviously, I know a couple of people these days that do that. It's very tough to do that. You really have to live a life of I wouldn't say a hermit, but you have to be, there's also thing hanging out with friends, restaurants. It's a very big burden on the house. The second day, David comes. David doesn't show up. Shaul says, where is David? He asked Jonathan. Jonathan was his best friend. Yonatan, the oldest son of Shaul. So Yonatan said to his father, Shaul, he says, oh, David asked me, Baruch, he was lying. He asked me, maybe I could go to my father's house for Rosh Chodesh. To the father-in-law was such a slight. How could my son-in-law not come to my table for Rosh Chodesh?
Kavod.
Where is his kavod? So he tells Yonatan, you are ben Navat HaMardut. You are the son of a rebellious woman. The Gemara says, what did he mean by that? He says, you are a tameh child. Why? Because your mother asked me to marry her. Wow. That means you are not coming from a pure seed. That's why you don't take my side. Wow. Look how he judged his son at that moment. It's crazy. He called him Ben Navat HaMardut because his mom asked him to marry her instead of a man. You have to ask the girl to marry. Ben Navat HaMarduchi, he called him. It's a crazy chidush. You understand? But that's what the Medrash says. So we always say Shaul asked. He was bitzniut. No, he was such bitzniut. She asked him to marry her. That's why he called him Ben Navat HaMardut. And what happened afterwards? It led for a two-year manhunt after David. A 2-year manhunt. And every time he's catching him, this, that. But where did it all start, Rabbi Isai? Yerushalayim. It all started in Yerushalayim. Who at the end got Yerushalayim? Who was the one who was able to overcome Yerushalayim? David's nephew. David had a sister. Bukharians, they have put a name Tzuruya. Right? That's actually the sister of David HaMelech, Tzuruya. It's not Tzuruya. Tzuruya. You understand? This Tzuruya, he had 2 sisters, Abigail and Tzuruya. You understand? One of his sisters married an Arab convert, Yeter HaYishmaeli. He was an Arab convert. Yeah, there are converts that are Arabs. against what you hear in some places. Very few though, very few. And then one was Tzeruiah. She had 3 sons. One was Asael. Asael means God made him. He was very fast. He would run like a deer. He was like mamash, very fast. But he wasn't that strong. And Shaul's uncle Avner killed him. Killed him. He was running after him because there was a war between the house of David and the house of Shaul. And he told Asael, stop chasing me. He says, no, I'm going to catch you. He says, stop chasing me, I'm going to get you. And he says, no, I'm going to get you. And he took his sword from the back while he's chasing him. He hit him. And the Gemara says he knew where to hit him, between which 2 ribs, to cut off his life force, and he fell dead. Later, Yoav, he avenged his brother, and David held him in contempt for his whole life. Who was Yoav? Yoav was the general of David. He was the son of Tzeruiah. Tzeruiah is his sister. He was the eldest son. There were 3 sons. That was his nephew. 3 brothers. Yoav, Avishai, and Asael. Asael, by the way, was the Gilgul of the Ari's son. The Ari in Shar Gilgulim writes that his son, his name was Moshe. He died very young because he revealed the secrets of the Torah that he wasn't supposed to reveal. The Zohar talks about a part where a deer, when she wants to give birth, a snake comes and bites her in the spot, and she gives birth. And the Ari told the Rav Chaim Vital, don't ask me what this means. They were learning the Zohar. Just don't ask me what this means. If you tell me, it's going to be Bayot. And Rav Chaim Vital writes over there, I what Bayot could be. He was very curious. I want to know what it means. He told him. A couple of days later, his son died. He had a fever. Back then, there was no antibiotics, and he died. If you go by the Ari's kever, you see there's a really small kever right next to his kever. It's very small. That's his son, Moshe. He was the Gilgul of Asael. And the Ari says, everybody who comes from Or Makif, there are 2 parts of the neshama. You have an Or Makif, and you have an Or Pnimi. You have an outer neshama and an inner neshama. The outer neshama is on a much higher level than the inner neshama. People are from the outer neshama, they're very shustri. They're very fast. They always want to, let's go. People are from the inner neshama, they're very lazy. They're very, very stagnant. We're good what we want in our life. Inner neshama. How do you get from the outer neshama? And how do you get from the inner neshama? It depends who had the higher kavanah in the bedroom. If the father had the higher kavanah, the children will be from the makif. They're going to be very, if he had good intentions, they're going to be very shustri in Torah. If he had bad intentions, they're going to be very shustri for shtuyot. Exactly. But in the inner one is the opposite. If the mother had the higher, he's going to be lazy in the Torah. If she had a higher in the good, he's going to be lazy in shtuyot. That means if the mother's kavanah is higher but to the good, he's going to be lazy. Exactly. So no matter if they have machshavot kedoshot, it's always a plus. It's lazy for averot. It's going to be lazy for averot. You understand? What happens if the father and mother are both strong? It's going to be a power play over there. You understand what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, a person always has bechira chofshi. He has a freedom of choice, and he chooses what he wants to be in life. And we learned in Shara Gilgulim, it was yesterday's shiur, we said in Shara Gilgulim, a person could change his shorosh neshama. It's pashut. You're able to change your neshama to a higher and much better neshama. It's written in Shara Gilgulim. Anyways, so we see that Asael was a big neshama. How did Yoav defeat Yerushalayim? How did he get Yerushalayim? And Yerushalayim back then was one of the only cities that wasn't fully controlled by Jewish people. Yoav, they had a sewer system back then. Sewer system, how? They used to have a sewer system, pipes and everything. It was called a tzinor. He went inside. You know how claustrophobic that place is? He what's his name? He crawled in. He went all the way up to the wall. You know kind of thing you have to be to do that. He went in. He came out. They had certain avodah zaras that were blind and limping. Why blind and limping? Because the Knaanim said that Yaakov Avinu and Yitzchak, one was limping and one was blind. Remember Abraham made a treaty with Avimelech? He said, for the generations we have a treaty. So they were putting those avodah zaras. You guys can't come to we're the descendants of Avimelech. So Yoav went up. It was really avodah zarah. It was kishuf. He went up there. He destroyed it. He was fighting a single man fight. Yoav was very strong. He opened up the gates. And David HaMelech went in. He made him his general. At the end of the day, David told Solomon, his son, how old was Solomon when he became king?
13.
13? 12 is the correct answer. 12 years old. He wasn't even bar mitzvah. He told Shlomo, make sure you kill Yoav. I couldn't kill him. Why? Because what he did for me. You understand what I'm saying? I have to be, can't be a kfui tova. But you make sure he doesn't he doesn't die in an easy death. What happened was Yoav went to the Mishkan. He held a mizbeach. When you hold a mizbeach, you can't do anything to the guy. It's like a ir miklat. He held it. He says, you can't touch me. Why did David want to kill Yoav?
Avner.
Because he killed two generals, Avner, and who was the second general? Amasa ben Yeter. He was the son of the Ishmaelite convert. He was his cousin from the other sister, Abigail, and he killed him.
He also killed his son, right?
He killed his own cousin.
He killed also
Avshalom. He also killed Avshalom, which is the son, not Amnon. Amnon, Avshalom killed. It's mamash a drama. By the way, every time that Goyim try to make a show on this, they destroy it completely. It doesn't last. You cannot make a story from the Jewish perspective. You just can't. Why? These are religious people. These were Nevi'im. Do you know David HaMelech learned the whole architecture of the Beit HaMikdash in one night from Shmuel HaNavi? When he was running away as a fugitive from Shaul, he was one night by Shmuel HaNavi, by the Ramah. If you guys been to Shmuel HaNavi's kever, it's on a mountain. Over there by the Ramah, close to Jerusalem. It's in Jerusalem, but a little bit far off. Over there, one night, he learned all the architecture of the Beit HaMikdash with a Talmid Vati couldn't learn in years. Do you know what kind of Ruach HaKodesh you need for that? You need to be a mind of total. You have to be able to just devour and grasp the whole Torah. And picture it. And put it in the blueprint. By the way, David had the whole Beit HaMikdash ready. If it wasn't for Natan, the prophet, that told him don't build it, he would have built it.
So you get the blueprint.
Why didn't David have the permission to build it?
Too much
blood. What kind of blood?
Kosher blood.
The Goyim blood? What was the kosher blood?
The guy.
Don't talk smart. You say something and
Nida.
how did he have kosher blood in his
His
heart?
wife is
Bathsheba? Because
Nida.
was it Bathsheba?
Blood of Nida.
Come on, Bathsheba. First of all, whatever you do with Bathsheba, yes, there was a story over there. Let's not get into the whole story of Bathsheba. You understand? That's a sheer within itself. But Bathsheba, first of all, she wasn't Tameh Tumat Nida.
Oh, the guy.
You understand? Because he didn't really kill. Uriah was Chayav Mitah. Right? When he told Uriah to go over there, he didn't go. He called Yoav my master, and he called David as if he was secondary to Yoav. By the way, they didn't have kavod to their kings because they were Talmidei Chachamim. Either you're a Talmid Chacham or you're not. Uriah had more kavod for Yoav because he was his Rebbe than he had for David. But still, he was the king. You can't say my master Yoav in front of the king. He was Chayav Mitah. But David did something else. It was a bit of a Chilul Hashem. But he annulled the marriage. He annulled the marriage of Bathsheba and Uriah without a Sanhedrin. That was a Chilul Hashem because nobody knew what he did. He was allowed to do it because he was Muflash b'Sanhedrin. He only did it because at that moment he couldn't control himself. He knew he was going to do an Avera because he asked for the test. He shouldn't have done that. Who are we to say such a thing? I'm talking about it. I feel bad. But what can I do? I'm telling you Torah. At that moment but I'm telling you, it was revealed to Rabbi Udaftaya in a dream. It was revealed. David HaMelech himself told Rabbi Udaftaya, how did he not sin with Bathsheba? But at the same time, the people did think that he sinned. And that itself was not becoming of David. You understand? Bathsheba was Chava, and David was Adam. She was meant to him from the 6 days of creation. Look how it is when you're not meant to have something at the right time, how it happens. How did Uriah marry Bathsheba?
He said no.
He said it
David himself gave Bathsheba to Uriah.
Yeah.
How? That time, when he killed Goliath, he didn't know how to cut off his head. He was very nervous. Imagine at that moment, you're killing a 13-foot giant over there, and saying you're like a 5'3". You know what I'm saying? You have somebody coming up to you at 14 feet, and you're killing him with a rock, and he falls down. He was so nervous, he couldn't cut off his head. So Uriah said, come on, I'm going to help you. He said, because of that, I give you, whenever I become king, any woman you want, you take. Who did he give? His own wife that was supposed to be Bathsheba. Something he shouldn't have said that. He shouldn't have said it. But he did. You understand? But Sheva was ruya LeDavid Meshish Yemei Bereshit. Ela she'achla paga. At the same time, David HaMelech, what could he do? That was the case. He asked for the test. What could have happened? Uriah would have died in the war himself, and he would have married Bathsheba. You understand? But at the same time, Yoav, back to Yoav, he made a big Aveirah. The Medrash says that Yoav read the proclamation of David in front of everyone. In front of everyone, he read it. David told Yoav, make sure to put him on the front line.
So he did.
But Yoav, what did he do? He read it in front of everyone. Are you crazy? What are you doing? He embarrassed him. It's very messed up. And he's his nephew, by the way. He's his nephew. So what happens? Yoav, back to what we were saying about Yerushalayim. Yoav defeats the whole Yevus. He allows David to be the king of Yerushalayim. Till today, what is that city called? City of
David.
See how small that city was? That was a city back in the day. Gabriel, you listening to what I'm saying? That was a city back in the days. That city of David. Right? That was Yerushalayim. Over there is all the fight. Over there in Yerushalayim, Yitzchak was put on the altar. Over there in Yerushalayim, Avraham fought and he defeated the 4 kings. In Yerushalayim, he built the altar. And over there in Yerushalayim, everything happened. In Yerushalayim, we're going to go when Mashiach comes. We're going to retake Yerushalayim. You know why Mashiach is not here? Why Mashiach is not here? Can I tell you guys something crazy?
You must.
I have to. Do you guys know? Something wild? Something when the Zionists, Zionim, when they, with Moshe Dayan, when they took Yerushalayim, in the 6-day war, they took the whole Jerusalem. Who brought them back into East Yerushalayim? Who brought them back in? Allah is going to bring the Arabs back?
No, the Arabs.
After Ovadia is your type? You're killing me. You just killed me. The Zionim, Erev Rav. The Erev Rav did it. Yeah. The Erev Rav did it. You read like David HaMelech. How? The Erev Rav did it.
He gave the key back.
He gave the keys back. And by the way, Yerushalayim will never become the Jews again until they leave. Until from East. You know what's in East Yerushalayim? Har HaZetim, Kever Shimon HaTzadik, all the famous places in East Yerushalayim. You know where it is? Across the street, or Sameach. Over there. It's the border. If you cross the street, your life is not in your hands anymore. It's barbed wire over there. East Yerushalayim. You're on your own over there, right across the street. If we don't take Jerusalem back, Mashiach will never come.
I'll wait here. Let's go take
Mexico.
So Mashiach gonna come and help us too.
Many stronger have said that, and they came back with nothing. Al ta'iru, do not awaken. Va'al ta'oreru, double awakening. Et ha'ava, the love. Ad she'techpatz. Can I give you a small thing? I had this chidush over the past week. Why Hashem is waiting so much to bring the Geulah? I'll tell you why. Person, let's say he's married. His wife is nida. Right? I'm not talking about a crazy guy who needs his wife all the time. His wife is nida. He waits 2 weeks. She goes to the mikveh. Before she comes home, again she gets nida.
Kill her.
She comes home.
That's wild.
And gets nida again. Okay, fine. Another 2 weeks. He can wait another 2 weeks. He wants to come to the Kodesh HaKodashim, let's call it. Again, she becomes nida. How does the urge become at that moment? Not just fire. He's already buying her jewelry. He's just trying to do everything. He doesn't even know why he's doing it. He just wants it so badly. Im ta'iru, Hashem is waiting so long. Not for his ahava to awaken. For our ahava to awaken.
You gotta have desire for that.
Our ahava has to awaken. Ahava.
He's like the lady in this case?
Keilu. But our ahava, maybe the lady doesn't have ahava. Maybe the woman doesn't have ahava. We have to awaken our ahava.
He's waiting for us.
Mi zot olam min midbar, says Shir Hashem. Who's coming up from the midbar? I was reading the book of the Chalban. You know what the Chalban was? He was a very big mikubal and a tzaddik. He passed away 2 years ago, something like that. I have his book. I was reading to you guys in Sukkot, remember?
Yeah.
He says over there, for people who are single, especially divorced, he writes this in his book. I will bring it in B'ezrat Hashem maybe some other time on Shabbat. Sigula to get married, 40 days early in the morning. Early in the morning to reach Shir Hashirim. Early in the morning. Ashmoret Haboker. Mi zot olam min hamidbar. Who is coming from the desert? What do you mean from the desert she's coming? Mikuteret morul vana. You know what the Gemara says? What's the greatness of a Talmid Chacham? What's the greatest of a Talmid Chacham? His wife. That's ready for him on Shabbat. I'm not joking. It's Gemara Masakah Brachot. That's what it says in the Gemara. Why? Talmid Chacham has to toil in Torah for 6 days. Has to toil in Torah for 6 days, a week. Back then, Talmid Chachamim wouldn't come home a whole year. For a day, a whole year they wouldn't. Yehuda, I believe it was Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chiya. Bukharians like that name, Chiya. Rabbi Chiya. Rabbi Chiya Rabbah. Rabbi Chiya Rabbah, he was Babylonian. He was a descendant of King David. He came up from Kafris in Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. With him, with Rebbe together, Rabbi Anasi, they made the Mishnah with all of his students. Levi Bar Sisi, Rabbi Oshaya, Bar Kapara. Bar Kapara had 12 wives. Bar Kapara. Why? He had 12 brothers, they all died. He had to do Yibum to all 12 of them. He told Rabbi Anasi, I don't want to do Yibum, Chalitza. Huh? None of them had kids. I want to do Chalitza. Rabbi Anasi says, do Yibum. I will support you.
Wow.
That year, it came time to get their check. So Bar Kapara, he was in yeshiva. They kissed. Listen, you have to support it. Just go to your benefactor. He said he's going to support you. Go to him. It's a midrash. He went to Rabbi Nasi and he supported him. Because he was very rich.
He was rich.
Yeah, he was very rich. But look, back then, that was Yibum. How come we don't do Yibum today, by the way? Just as a side point. Why do Yibum today? Why not? You could do Yibum. What's the problem? The Torah says you could do Yibum. Not you, Chas v'Shalom. Well, you know, but a person who has a brother that doesn't have kids and he passed away, he was married, he could do Yibum. Why shouldn't it? Why? The rabbis force him to do Chalitza.
They were on the level?
The Gemara says because you have bad thoughts. The reason you want her is not because you really want to live in your son, your brother's neshama. The reason you want to do it because it was your sister-in-law. You understand? In our generation, that the tefillah is in our head. By the way, Rabbi Shimon Agassi, Zecher Tzadik Kadosh Livracha, Rabbi Yehuda B'tai's Rebbe and Chavruta, who wrote the Bnei Aaron and Shar Gilgulim, which we learned, which the Shemen Sasson said, Rabbi Sasson Bechor Parsiado, Rosh Yeshivat Beit El, says if you would have read a Pirush in the whole Etz HaChaim, we would leave all the Pirushim and just learn his. Rabbi Shimon Agassi had a son that died on the night of his chuppah. On the night of his chuppah. Yeah. Oh, who knows what it was? But it was a different reason. I don't want to get into it right now. He died, and his daughter-in-law was 18, and his youngest son was like 5, 6. I don't really remember. And they have to do Yibum now. And he told her, if you're gonna wait till he becomes older, now how old is she? She's like 18, and he's like 6. That's like a 10, 12 year difference. If you're gonna wait for him to get older and do Yibum, I promise you long life till the end. She didn't just outlive him. She outlived most of her children. Not long ago she passed away in Shechnat Bukharim. She had full set of teeth. I heard this from Rav Muadev. He told me this full set of teeth at the end of her life. 100 and something she passed away. Very long. Recently, she was a recent something that happened. You understand? Back then in Iraq and the Sfardim, they used to do Yibum. Today Chalitza, why? The Maineh is not in the right place. Not L'Shem Yechud. Who over here before he's with his wife says L'Shem Yechud Kuchab Rakush? Why? You're davening tefillah. You're doing Shmonai. So what do you say? L'Shem Yechud Kuchab Rakush. Yeah, the Ben Ish Chai has one in the training.
Baby, man.
Even when you're not making a baby, you're still doing a mitzvah. But let's say you're not making babies.
It's in the siddur. It's in the siddur.
It's in the siddur, you're saying.
No way, serious?
It's in the siddur. I didn't know it's in the siddur. That's already a different story.
It's in the aninu. You know the woman's siddur, aninu?
Oh, it's over there. It's a woman's siddur. Don't say it's in the siddur.
It's the siddur.
That's it. It's a siddur.
What about you about to get everybody looking for?
When I got married, the rabbi I was learning for the thing, he laminated it for me.
Wow.
And he says it this, you say every time He lives in Israel right now. He moved 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. He said, and every time, I tried, but say this l'shem, why? It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. Im ta'iru v'im toru et ahava ad shetechpatz. The ahava must be wanted. If you can have the ahava, doesn't want. Let's say your wife doesn't want the ahava. What do you do then? Again, he says that's what does that mean? Ad shetechpatz. Michael, not Michael. Let's not say names. What does that mean? Ad shetechpatz. So it turns off. Techpatz is to turn off. Michal, you're gonna get a shoteh from me right now. You're 0 for 2.
No, why?
מה זה עד שתחפץ? You have no idea. מה זה עד שתחפץ? עד שתרצה. How do you do it עד שתרצה?
In English, what is that?
Until she wants. How do you do that?
Foreplay.
You tickle.
What foreplay? What are you? Lahavdil, Hercules, Yamashimo, what do you think you are over here? What do you think you are? The Gemara says, a woman who cries, her husband loses her parnasa. Yeah, the Gemara says, woman who cries because of her husband, what do you mean? She cries. Women cry all the time. She sees a cat falling off a tree, she's gonna cry. A woman who cries. The answer is, if you could give her gifts and you don't do it, you have the ability but you don't, and she cries, you lose your parnasa. You have the...
She cries because of that?
Yeah, because of that. She has the... You have the, papilimos.
You have the means.
But you have the means, but you don't do it. You're cheap. And you don't want to do it. What does that mean? I'll tell you a crazy thing. You guys all heard of Rabbi Ben Abba Shaul, yes? Rabbi Ben Abba Shaul, he was also, in this time, was Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Yudah Tzadka. He was Rabbi Wadia's Rebbe, Rabbi Yudah Tzadka.
Is that the one that's related?
Huh?
The one that's related to one here?
Yeah, exactly. It's his I think his great uncle, something like that. Of Menashe Tzadka, yes, his great uncle. Rabbi Yudah Tzadka, there's a Rosh Hashiva of Mekubalim today. His name is Rabbi Benayahu Shmueli. Really, it's his father that's Rosh Hashiva, but he runs the show. So, he said a story when he got married. The first year, yeshiva guys, especially in Israel, what are they making? $200 a month? You think they're really thinking about buying their wife a gift for the Shloshah Regalim, the 3 festivals? You live over here in luxury. באמת. I remember when I was in Israel for, I think it was before Pesach, we were there for the test. It was before Pesach. The rabbi, he was a Rosh Kollel, he was driving on the road and he was stopping by one of the, when we went to take the test, by one of the houses over there. The Avrech comes out and says, this is for you for the Chag. It was maybe a couple of 100 shekels. I remember this, I never forget. I remember how he looks even, the Avrech. Never forget that moment. Mamash, they live in, for us we see it as poverty. For them, it's not, the religious life, that's not what they're not looking for that luxury.
Getting by.
Alright, they just get by because that's not their focus in life, you know what I'm saying? So, Rabbi Yudah Tzadka told Rabbi Benayahu Shmueli when he was a yeshiva student in Porat Yosef. It was his first year of marriage. By the way, he has a kidin that's Bukhari.
Oh, wow.
And he told, it was good for him. He said to him, what did you buy your wife? It was, I think, one of the 3 festivals. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. What did you buy your wife this Pesach? Let's call it Pesach. What did you buy your wife this? He's saying the story himself. What did you buy your wife this Pesach? He said, buy her? We're just paying rent. We're just paying rent. There's no food stamps over there and stuff. The rabbi took out of his pocket whole thing of cash. Probably was for the Avrechim. Gave him 200 shekel. He said, you buy for your wife a dress for a Chag. Give her this money, tell her to buy yourself a dress. And make sure you save up money. Every one of the Shalosh Regalim, you give her money to buy herself something new. That's over there, a Rosh Yeshiva. Not a regular Rosh Yeshiva, probably had Ruach HaKodesh. He's saying this to his student, who's today Rosh Yeshiva Mekubalim. That means to be a mikubal and a tzaddik, what do you really have to be?
Odam.
Odam. You have to be a ben adam. You don't have to wait for your spouse to be the ben adam. You have to be the ben adam.
Not a char.
Im ta'iru v'im Torah. You have to be lechpot et ahava.
How much they paid you?
How much they paid me?
Torah pays them, bro.
How much they paid me?
If you don't see him in the next
Just
year.
thank me for this. You should thank me for this. You understand?
Every joke has truth in it, man. Don't say joke.
Now I'm gonna tell you something crazy. As we're already
Again with that word?
wild.
Thank you.
Put your mask back on. Let me tell you.
Crazy sounds better.
Let's tell you something
Crazy.
wild.
Crazy sounds
Oh, okay, but you like crazy, he likes wild. Avram at this point, pardon me,
Still have
he's in Eretz Canaan.
Cannot.
Big Chilul Hashem happens. Big Chilul Hashem.
He leaves.
He's over there preaching God. He's saying Yudke Vavke. He's making Mizbeach. And guess what happens? People are becoming religious, and there's no food.
Yeah. Famine. Famine.
Yanu Shol.
And Avram is like,
Yeah, they go.
wow. I have to make sure there's no Chilul Hashem. The Ramban said he failed this test, but he didn't really fail. Why did he leave Eretz Yisrael Eretz Canaan to show the Canaanim? It wasn't because of him there is no food. It's because of them. That's why when he went to Mitzrayim, listen to this pshat, there still was food. He said to them, you see, it's not because of me. I'm teaching them Torah here too. And there's still food. It's not me. It's you. It should be Chilul Hashem. That's why he did it. When he went to Mitzrayim, you know, the Egyptians, the ancients, they knew astronomy, all this. In the ancient Akkadian books, he talks about Avraham Avinu. I forgot the historian's name. In the book of Victor Miller, he writes the name. He says over there, Avraham Avinu was the one who taught the ancient Egyptians astronomy, taught them about all these kinds of scientific things, mathematics. Avraham taught them, Avraham Avinu. Avraham gets to Mitzrayim, he says to his wife Sarai, you are my cousin. My niece, I'm sorry, he was his niece. Please, hide. Now I know that you are beautiful. Hide. So, I should be good for me. Rashi says, what does it mean you should be good for me? Crazy. Wild. Rashi, what does that mean? They're going to give me gifts. And the person, what? Abraham wants gifts? First question. Second question, what does it mean now that I know you're beautiful? Guys, I'm going to tell you a wild Gemara. Could you find a different word? I'm not really connected to that word. Huh?
100 years you never looked at that.
Imagine in my big bar.
So, the Gemara says, Rav Brona, he used to make marks in Israel where Kohanim could go and Kohanim could not go. One day he goes into Ma'at HaMachpelah, the cave of the patriarchs, and he goes into where the Avot are. Now, the Avot are not in the ground, they're actually on beds. And he sees Avraham Avinu is on the lap of Sarah, and she's playing with his hair. It's a Gemara. Test me on it.
Wait,
Test me out.
he sees a dream or he sees
A vision on the.
No, he sees Avraham Avinu
Okay.
on Sarah's lap, and she's playing with his hair.
Okay.
She's,
Okay.
you know, husband and wife.
Okay.
It's their private room. That means Avraham and Sarah's love was something legendary. Could you imagine a rabbi on his wife's lap? You're never going to imagine that in a million years. But the Gemara is giving you a scenario how Avraham is on Sarah's lap and she's playing with his hair. She's playing with his kukuri. and I guess he liked it because that's what it was. Because a husband has to love his wife. That means there was a lot of love over there. And by the way, the Gemara says there were, I think, 4 beautiful women in the world, or 5. Sarah was the most beautiful woman after Eve. That the Gemara says the Gemara is not talking about like
physical.
It is talking about physical. It's not talking about like, she's beautiful in her acts and her beautiful in her midot. The Gemara in the second Megillah, the Tachlis, she was a very beautiful woman. Physically. Sarah, Rachav, Esther, and Abigail. And some say Vashti, so it's 5. Some say Vashti. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says also Vashti.
Wow.
Before the tail.
She was the klipa. I guess the goyim liked the tail. So Avraham loved Sarah. The attraction is important. Look what the Rashi says. You have to put it into perspective. See, to learn a Rashi, you don't put it into perspective. I'm giving it to you with perspective. Avraham loved Sarah without even knowing how she looked. Do you understand? Single people, you listening to me? That means the people that the Gemara says that it doesn't say Yaakov was on Rachel's lap, Yitzchak was in Rivka's lap. It says Abraham was on Sarah's lap. Why? To teach you that love is a product of loyalty. It's not a product of attraction. That's real. And that's the greatest midah. That's the greatest lesson of this parasha. It's an amazing lesson. And he tells her, "V'chayta nafshi, my soul will live because of you." That means my olam haba is dependent on you. And when he didn't want to kick Ishmael out of his house, that nomad.
No, I don't say
Yeah, that's what he was. Right? When he wanted to kill him, and Sarah said, "Kick him out," and he didn't want to. And God said, "Listen to her." Why? If he had even a doubt that she didn't love him or I was loyal to him for a second, he wouldn't listen to her. But he knew that she was loyal to him and she loved him and they had a mutual connection, and he listened to her. And he kicked his son out of his house with a fever, 103 fever. He kicked him out of the house. Ishmael. And he was Choser B'Tshuva at the end, yes. But still he kicked him out. Because Sarah said that. There was a rabbi. His name was Rav Shmuel Darzi, student of Yitzhak Kaduri. He used to go to Rabbi Daftayas Kever. And he used to look at Har HaZeitim he was on Har HaZeitim, he used to look at the Golden Mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque, and he used to say, Kol asher tomar Lecha Sarah, Shema Bekola. Because when you have a wife and she's a tzaddiket, you have to learn how to appreciate her. And if she's not a tzaddiket, make her into a tzaddiket. That's the older parashas. Remember, who called Yitzchak? Yitzchak? Sarah. Who called Yaakov? Rivka. Who called the Shvatim their names? Rachel and Lecha. You don't see that he called. By Esav you do. And he called him Esav. Right?
No amak this time.
No amak. There was no amaks over there. There was no problem with sandaks. Alright? Such a beautiful lesson. V'chayta nafshi bigdalech. He said, I don't know how you look even. Of course you know how she looked. You're living with a person your whole life. But that wasn't my focus in my life. What was that focus? And that's what we're talking about on Shabbat, B'ezrat Hashem. And it's I love this pasuk. He moved to Eretz Canaan, not just him, not just his wife, but just his nephew. All the souls that he made in Haran. What does that mean? He made in Haran? Those neshamot that he made gerim. He converted them to Hashem Yitbarach. Our job in this world is to make people Choser B'Tshuva. I was reading in the book of the Chalban. He says over there, at least one person in your life, you have to make him religious. One person, you have to make him religious. When I say religious, fully religious, from nothing to everything. How do you do that? I'm an introvert. I can't do that.
Your kids count?
Be like Abraham.
No.
How did Abraham Avinu do it?
Why not?
Vayikra b'Shem Hashem. Everything he did, Baruch Hashem. Everything he said, b'Shem Hashem. And who is this Hashem? What is it? L'Shem. Everything he did, I'm doing it for Hashem. He said, who is this Hashem? Who is this nice guy? One last story and we'll end with this. One last story. It's a small story. Rav Zilberstein says the story. And the souls that they made in Haran. there was one very rich guy in Eretz Yisrael. He was a clothing manufacturer. One day he davened Shacharit Mincha Aravit. He ended up in a kollel to daven Aravit. Kollel ends 6 o'clock. It was 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock. He comes inside, the whole kollel full, from the head to the toe. All the kollel guys were there learning Torah. They were learning. He said, I don't understand. When you work, the guys who are at work, they can't wait to run away.
Right.
But these guys who are sitting learning Torah, and others, they don't want to run away. They can't wait to stay even more. This is what Torah is. It must be something sweet. Maybe I'm missing something. It can't be so many people love it so much and they want to stay. You ever see a guy who wants to stay overtime unless he's getting paid double?
Time and a half.
Time and a half. Yeah, that's what they call it. But the guys in the call, they want to stay. They want to learn more Torah. Me, Teneni, b'midbar melon orchim. Who's gonna give me to live in the hotel of the Torah, in the teva of the Torah? And he became religious from that. Kept Shabbat, this, that. Just from seeing kollel guys learn Torah, and all those guys have the zchut of bringing him back to Tshuva. Remember, Rabotai, you're like Avraham Avinu. The Rambam calls him Eitan. You're Anak Sheba Anakim. You represent something. When a goy sees you, when an irreligious Jew sees you, what does he see? Forget about what he thinks. You're a messenger of Hashem. Whatever you do affects him. And I'm going to tell you something. Whatever you do affects your wife. Whatever you do affects your children. Whatever you do affects your parents, your grandparents. And if you're the right messenger, they'll be the right recipient. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu be mezakeh otanu to be in the footsteps of Avraham Avinu, as it says, Leman yitzaveh et banav. He will give the tzivui to his kids. Why I chose him? Why I chose him? Because I know he's going to give chinuch to his kids. To go in my way. When you give chinuch to your kids, it's not bitul Torah. When you tell a story to your children, it's not bitul Torah. You're doing chinuch. May we be zocheh to walk in Avraham Avinu. May we be zocheh to the bracha of Avraham Avinu. Veheyeh beracha. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia Omer Ratzah.